Rain hissed off the asphalt as her shoes slapped through the puddles, breath sharp in her chest, heartbeat louder than the distant thunder crawling across the sky. She should have kept running. Every instinct said to ignore it, but she stopped. He was there again. That same stray dog, mud-caked, ribs like fingers under the skin. Eyes, those eyes wide and unblinking, beneath the flickering street lamp. A shiver ran through her that had nothing to do with the cold. She stood still, soaked in sweat and rain, pulse hammering. He didn't bark, didn't move, just stared. The jogger pulled her hood back, heart thudding harder now. Not from exertion, but because of him. This was the third morning in a row. Same place, same look. A battered collar hung from his neck like a question. Tags missing, fur matted and streaked with something darker than mud. Blood? Her eyes caught it, smeared across one paw. Old or new, she couldn't tell. She whispered, barely audible above the storm, "What happened to you?" The dog stepped forward. Not a lunge, not a beg, just one slow, deliberate step, like he was choosing her. Her fingers curled around the pepper spray on her keyring before she realized how ridiculous that was. He wasn't a threat. He was a message. The street behind him stretched into fog, empty, silent, but something in her gut twisted. This wasn't just a stray. This was a trail, and she'd just been invited to follow it. She crouched slowly, her hand outstretched, palm open. He didn't flinch. His nose twitched, and for the first time, she noticed his ears were clipped, jaggedly, like someone had done it in a hurry, or a fight, or worse. Another crack of thunder rattled the trees, and that's when he turned, abrupt, urgent, and began trotting down the sidewalk, glancing back to make sure she was coming. It felt insane, but her feet moved anyway. She didn't know why. Maybe it was because the silence in her apartment had been swallowing her whole lately. Maybe it was because running through the storm was the only way to quiet the nightmares. Or maybe it was because something in those broken eyes looked too familiar. The city blurred past, gray brick, chain-link fences, the guttural rumble of far-off traffic. He didn't stop until they reached an alley behind an abandoned laundromat. The walls were tagged with layers of graffiti, and the air reeked of mildew and something faintly metallic. He sat, just sat, staring at a rusted dumpster. She didn't get it until she heard it, the faintest whimper. Not his, someone else's. She froze. Then it came again, a cry, from inside the dumpster. Panic surged, but instinct kicked in faster. She darted forward, yanked the heavy lid open, and gagged on the smell. Rot, mold, something burnt. But underneath the trash bags, movement, a duffel bag, old, torn at the zipper. It twitched. Her hands trembled as she dragged it out, unzipped it. Her scream stuck in her throat. Inside were two puppies, filthy, barely moving. One blinked slowly, ribs protruding like blades. The other didn't move at all. Her knees hit the pavement. He'd led her here. The stray nudged her elbow with his nose. Not begging for food, not asking for help, just watching, waiting. She scooped the breathing puppy into her arms, pressing it close to her chest. The rain matted its fur to her hoodie. Who the hell would do this? She looked at the other one. Still, too still. And then she saw it, tape around its muzzle. Her breath caught. She peeled it away gently. The fur underneath was raw and bloodied. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't someone abandoning animals. This was something else. Deliberate, cruel. She looked back at the dog. He didn't look away. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why'd you follow me?" And maybe it was a trick of the light, or maybe not. But in the next flash of lightning, she saw it. A number, tattooed faintly along his ear, faded like it had been burned or branded. "Was someone using you?" she murmured, more to herself than to him. "Fighting? Breeding?" Her eyes flicked back to the duffel, the tape, the scars. This wasn't just abuse. It was a pattern, and he wanted her to know. The vet tech's hands moved fast under the fluorescent lights. "You did the right thing bringing them in," she said, voice low, serious. "The one you found in the bag? He's gonna make it. Barely. But the other... The silence said the rest. The jogger, her name was Anna, not that she'd introduced herself yet, watched through the glass as the puppy was hooked to fluids. The stray was curled in the corner, eyes locked on the pup like a soldier on vigil. "You want to know the weirdest part?" the tech said, voice lowering even more. "This ain't the first time we've seen something like this in the last few months. Different places, same story. Dogs found near dead, duct tape, trauma, and always, there's one older dog nearby, watching, like they're trying to lead someone to them." Anna's fingers gripped the counter. She thought about the brand, the scars, the silence in his eyes. This wasn't random, and he hadn't picked her by accident. She was being pulled into something, a map, a trail, of pain and silence. And maybe she was the first to stop running long enough to see it. When she finally left the clinic, the dog followed again, this time not at a distance. He walked beside her, no leash, no command, just trust. They reached her apartment. She hesitated at the door. "I don't even know your name," she whispered. But of course he didn't answer, so she named him Ghost, because that's what he was, a shadow from somewhere darker, carrying truths no one else wanted to see. Inside, she spread out an old towel for him. He didn't lie down until she did, and when she finally closed her eyes, the quiet felt different. Not empty, not anymore. But just before sleep took her, she remembered something. The first day he followed her, he'd been limping. That limp was gone now. He hadn't been wounded. He'd been pretending. He needed her to follow him. Not because he was weak, but because he couldn't speak. And now that she'd listened, something inside her cracked open. A need to know more, to find where he came from, and to understand what kind of human tapes a puppy's mouth shut and throws it away like garbage. She didn't know it yet, but that night was the last time she would ever see the world the same way again. By morning, the storm had passed, but its weight lingered in the silence. Light filtered through the blinds in streaks of gold and gray, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor where the dog now slept, curled tightly but alert beneath the old radiator, ears twitching at every sound. Anna sat at the kitchen table, clutching a chipped mug of coffee with both hands, steam rising between her fingers. She hadn't slept much. Her body had dozed, sure, but her mind never stopped turning. Images looped behind her eyes, the duffel bag twitching, the bruised ribs of that puppy rising and falling like it was trying to stay alive just to be seen. And then that number, burned into Ghost's skin. She Googled it, searched databases, dog registries, military tattoos. Nothing. It didn't match any known system, but it looked like something official, cold, coded, like it belonged to a system that didn't want to be found. Ghost stirred, lifting his head. His eyes caught hers and she didn't look away. "You want me to dig, don't you?" she said aloud, voice still raspy. "You brought me in, and now you need me to finish what you started." He stood, walked over, and sat at her feet. No bark, no tail wag, just presence, like a soldier awaiting orders. And that's when she made the call. "Dr. Keen, it's Anna Holloway. I know it's been years, but I need a favor." The voice on the other end was slow, cautious. "You're not calling about you, are you?" "No," she said. "This is bigger." She hadn't spoken to Dr. Keen since the last of her therapy sessions, 2 years after the accident, 2 years after she stopped working homicide, 2 years after she pulled over on a bridge one night and almost stepped off the edge. But this wasn't about her anymore. She gave Keen the vet's address, the name of the tech, even the condition of the puppy. Then she added the number she'd seen on Ghost's ear. Keen said nothing for a long moment. Then, "I'll call back. Give me 2 hours." Anna hung up and looked down. Ghost was still watching her. She sighed. "You know, I was supposed to run a half marathon next weekend." He blinked, unimpressed. "Yeah, that's what I thought too." The hours passed in a haze. She couldn't focus on anything. Not food, not news, not even the distant hum of the city rising around her. She just kept replaying that alley, that bag, that faint, shaking breath of the puppy in her arms. When the phone rang, she answered before the first ring ended. I don't know how you got involved in this, Keene said, but that number, it's not public. It's internal to a research facility, one that's not supposed to have anything to do with dogs. Anna's breath caught. What kind of research? Behavioral, neural tracking, trauma studies. Supposedly, it was shut down 2 years ago after a whistleblower exposed animal mistreatment. But if that tattoo is still showing up, Keene didn't have to finish. It wasn't shut down. It just went quiet. Anna stared at Ghost. You escaped, she said softly, and you've been trying to expose them ever since. He looked away then, for the first time, and in that gesture she felt it. Shame, like he blamed himself for what happened to those pups. But how could he? He was just a dog. Then again, he wasn't just anything. Anna pulled her coat on, grabbed her keys. We're going to the shelter, she said, because someone had to know something, and she needed to see the records for every case that had come in, matching that same pattern. Dogs abandoned, wounded, but watched over by a silent guardian. When she got there, Ghost at her side, the staff immediately recognized him. You again, the woman at the front desk said, frowning. You brought in the injured pup last night. He's stable, by the way, but something weird happened. Anna froze. What? The woman tapped her keyboard, pulling up a log. 3 more dogs were dropped off at the back gate this morning. Same signs. Duct tape, malnourishment, cuts. But no one saw who left them. Just, they appeared. And the cameras, offline. Power surge, they said, during the storm. Ghost let out a low growl. Anna looked at him. They're using the weather, hiding in the chaos. The woman nodded slowly. We've had a few cases like this. Always storms, always early morning. Anna leaned in, voice hushed. Do any of the other dogs have tattoos or numbers? Anything that looks like a brand? The woman hesitated. We don't typically look for that, but I can have someone check. An hour later, a young volunteer came out holding a tablet. 2 of them do. Different numbers. Same style. Like they were cataloged. Like test subjects, Anna whispered. And it all clicked. The silence. The storms. The ghost dogs leading people to victims. It wasn't random. These dogs had been trying, begging for someone to see what was happening. But no one had. Until now. Back in the car, Ghost climbed into the passenger seat, head low. She glanced at him. You were part of it, weren't you? You saw what they did, you escaped, and now you're trying to stop it. He stared out the window. Anna's fingers tightened around the wheel. Her heart beat faster, not with fear, but with something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The kind of fire that used to keep her up at night when she worked cases. Before she burned out, before she broke. And she realized something. She wasn't being haunted. She was being called back. By something too broken to ask with words, but too loyal to give up. Back at her apartment, she opened a new file on her laptop. She titled it simply a Project Ghost. She began listing patterns, shelter reports, storm dates, dog conditions, every abandoned alley within 5 miles of the last drop. She wasn't a cop anymore, but she could still investigate, still chase truth, still bring justice, if not to the monsters who did this, then to the silent ones left behind. And as she typed, Ghost rested his head on her foot, like he'd been waiting for someone to join the fight, like he knew she would. Outside, the wind had picked up again. Another storm was coming, but this time, she wouldn't be running through it. She'd be walking straight into it, with him at her side. And no matter how dark it got, she would not back down, because someone out there was still doing this, still hurting the forgotten. And thanks to a stray dog who refused to be silent, Anna Holloway was going to make sure they were finally heard. If this story pulled you in even a little, stay close, because what Anna uncovers next will shake her to the core and might just lead her straight into the heart of a truth no one else is willing to face. If you've ever believed that the forgotten deserve justice, this story is just beginning. 3 days later, Anna stood on the sidewalk across from an unmarked concrete building on the edge of the industrial district, the kind of place you wouldn't glance at twice. No signage, no windows, just a rusted door and a security camera that didn't move. It was the kind of place where things happened no one wanted witnessed. Ghost sat beside her, unmoving. his ears flicking at every sound, nose twitching toward the door, like he remembered something. Not recent, but buried, like a nightmare waking up from a long sleep. She hadn't come here on a hunch. She had followed the records, shelter logs from 6 different facilities. Same pattern. Dogs dumped within a mile radius of 3 known labs, supposedly defunded after abuse allegations. This one had the most repeat drops. She knew it was risky, but something in her gut, something primal, told her this was where it began, or where it ended. A truck rumbled past behind her, and Anna snapped back into motion. She crossed the street, paused, then knocked once. No answer. She pressed her ear to the door, a low hum, like refrigeration or air filtration. Definitely not an empty building. She tried the handle, locked. Ghost began to whine, barely audible, tail stiff. "What do you remember?" she whispered, kneeling beside him. He didn't look at her, just kept staring at the door. And then he pawed the ground. A scratch, then another, then one more. 3. Anna blinked. 3 knocks, 3 scratches. He looked up at her, so she knocked again. 3 times, spaced out like code. A click, a hiss, the door unlocked, and then nothing. Anna held her breath, pushed. The door creaked open to darkness. The hallway inside was cold, too cold for a building without climate control. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering in sections. The walls were painted the same shade of medical gray used in every facility she'd ever hated. The floor smelled of bleach and old copper. Ghost didn't hesitate. He stepped forward like he was returning to a battlefield. Anna followed. They moved quietly, passing rows of doors. Most were shut. One hung slightly ajar, and she peeked in. An empty kennel, rusted bars, chains on the floor. The air reeked of ammonia and something sharper. Fear, maybe. It smelled like pain. Then a sudden sound, a muffled bark, hoarse and weak. Down the hall, second door from the left. Anna sprinted. Inside, 3 cages, one occupied. A young beagle, ribs showing, paw bandaged in gauze-stained yellow. It looked up, eyes wide, then bolted to the back of the cage and whimpered. Ghost stepped into view. The beagle froze. Then it whimpered again, but softer, recognizing him. Anna moved quickly, unlatching the cage. The dog didn't run, didn't fight, just collapsed into her arms. That's when the lights snapped off. All of them. The hallway plunged into black. She stood frozen. And then, footsteps. Slow, heavy, coming from the far end of the corridor. Ghost growled, a deep, guttural sound from his chest. She'd never heard it from him before. It didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a promise. She backed up, clutching the beagle. A figure appeared, backlit by a red exit sign, face shadowed. "Facilities closed," a voice said. Male, calm, controlled. "You're not supposed to be here." Anna's heart hammered. "I could say the same thing," she replied, voice low. "You're not supposed to be operating." He stepped closer. "You don't understand what we're doing here." "I think I do," she said. "You brand dogs. You experiment on them. You dump them when they break. You think this is some twisted animal shelter?" He scoffed. "These dogs save lives. We make sure they're ready. We put them in situations no civilian dog could survive. They're soldiers. They're not yours," Anna hissed. "They don't belong in cages." His eyes landed on Ghost, then narrowed. "That one shouldn't be alive." Anna's blood turned to ice. "He was retired, deemed unstable. How the hell did you—" "I didn't find him," she snapped. "He found me. He led me here. And now you're going to answer for what you did." The man took another step. Then Ghost lunged, not at the man, but at the light switch behind them. He hit it with his paw, and the emergency lights snapped back on, flooding the corridor in dim red. It was just enough for Anna to see the badge clipped to the man's belt. Blackwater K-9 Rehabilitation Division. She froze. That name had come up in only one place, a redacted article buried in a 2019 whistleblower report, accused of testing trauma resilience through sensory deprivation on dogs. Ghost had been one of them. Anna backed toward the exit, still clutching the beagle. "If I don't make it out, everything I know goes public," she said. You so much as touch that dog and it's over." The man didn't move. He didn't need to. She could see it in his eyes. He thought she was bluffing. She wasn't, because the files were already backed up, and they were in the hands of someone who owed her everything. Someone who wouldn't hesitate. Outside, rain had started again. Anna pushed through the door and ran, down the alley, around the corner. Ghost stayed on her heel, silent and fast. They didn't stop until they reached her car. She slammed the door, locked it, sat there shaking. The beagle was still pressed to her chest, breathing shallowly but alive. Ghost sat in the back seat, staring out the window. "I saw his badge," she whispered. "I saw where you came from." He didn't look at her, but he didn't have to. The truth was already unraveling. They weren't just rescuing abandoned dogs. They were uncovering the aftermath of a Black Ops training program disguised as rehabilitation, a program that treated animals like equipment, like tools, like weapons. And now one of those weapons had turned, had defected, had brought the whole house of cards down with nothing but scars, silence, and persistence. Anna reached into her coat pocket and pulled out Ghost's old military dog tag, the one they'd found embedded in his collar weeks ago. She ran her thumb over it. It was scratched, almost unreadable, but the words still showed through. Unit. Ghost Protocol. She looked at him. "I'm not leaving you behind again." Outside, the rain thickened into a downpour, but this time, they weren't hiding from it. They were coming through it, because what started as a jog through a storm had become something far greater, a reckoning long overdue. And for the first time in years, Anna wasn't running away from her past. She was running straight into the fire. Anna didn't sleep that night, not because she didn't want to, but because every time she closed her eyes, she saw that man's face, his voice, the way he'd looked at Ghost like he was property that had slipped its leash. Outside her window, the storm had settled into a low, constant drizzle, the kind that soaked everything without sound. Ghost lay curled near the front door, still, eyes half closed but never fully asleep. The beagle, now named Riley, rested in a blanket-lined crate near the fireplace, twitching occasionally, as if caught in dreams she couldn't yet escape. The house felt too quiet, too calm for what had just happened. Anna got up and sat beside Ghost, running her fingers through his coarse fur. There were still scars beneath his coat, raised welts that didn't heal evenly, evidence of restraints, of burns, of whatever protocols they had pushed him through to break him. And yet, they hadn't. She remembered that moment clearly now, when Ghost had knocked the light switch with his paw. He hadn't lunged at the man, hadn't lost control. He'd made a decision, a tactical one, which meant his mind was intact, his instincts sharp. He wasn't some broken animal acting on trauma. He was trying to show her something. She whispered, "You were trained to navigate that place, weren't you?" Ghost didn't move, but in the low flicker of firelight, she saw his eyes open, calm, focused. He remembered. Anna's phone buzzed on the table, a message. She picked it up. It was from Lena, her old contact from Animal Protection Services. One line. "You need to see this. Check your inbox." She tapped into her email, downloaded the attachment. Then she froze. It was a zip folder. Title, K9 Redemption Protocol, Phase 3 Termination Logs. Anna clicked it open. Dozens of PDF reports spilled out, each with a case number. She opened one at random. Subject ID, G023. Alias, Ghost. Status, failed reintegration. Subject demonstrated resistance to auditory aversion training. Transfer recommended to disposal unit. Her jaw clenched. She opened another. Subject ID, B107. Alias, Riley. Status, involuntary limb sensitivity triggered during high-stress simulation. Transfer approved. She opened 6 more. Everyone followed the same pattern. Dogs marked as failed, dogs discarded, or worse, used as test cases for further stress resilience trials. They hadn't been training these animals for therapy or military deployment. They were running psychological experiments. She scrolled to the last document in the folder. Internal memo. Termination protocol redesign. Subject. Strays are becoming unpredictable. Public encounters increasing. Adjust future drop sites. Eliminate tagging when possible. Anna's hands trembled. They had planned to erase these dogs like mistakes on a page, until Ghost escaped, until he found her. She forwarded everything to Lena, attached a note, "I have a witness, and I'm not backing down." The next morning, she and Ghost returned to the animal hospital Riley had been admitted to. The vet, a woman named Dr. Moreno, met them outside. "I don't know how to say this," she began, "but that dog, she has signs of something I've only seen once before. We found microelectrodes along her spine, surgical scars under her fur. Someone experimented on her nervous system, illegally." Anna swallowed hard. "Can you remove them?" Moreno hesitated. "I can try, but they're integrated deep, designed to trigger pain during training sessions. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." Anna looked down at Ghost. "I think he can help," she said. "He knows their patterns, the building, the code. He led me to Riley. I think he knows how many more are out there." Moreno looked skeptical. "You think he remembers the layout of a lab?" "He doesn't forget," Anna said. "He survives." By the time they got back home, a message was waiting on her burner phone, the one only a handful of people even knew she had. It was a voice memo, Lena's voice. "I couldn't sit still after what you sent me. I ran a search through our closed case archives. You're not going to believe this, but there's a whistleblower, a man named Marcus Vale, former contractor. He filed a sealed complaint against Blackwater K9 3 years ago and then vanished." Anna's pulse quickened. "Vanished how?" Lena's voice answered after a pause. "Supposedly moved overseas, but I traced a last known address." She texted it to Anna, a small cabin on the edge of a forgotten county line. "I don't know if he'll talk, but if anyone can fill in the blanks, it's him." Anna didn't wait. She packed Ghost's gear, left Riley in safe care at the vets with security detail, then drove north until the roads narrowed into gravel and pine needles. By the time they reached the cabin, daylight had faded into amber twilight. Birds chirped softly in the distance. Wind brushed the tops of the trees, but something about the place felt still, not peaceful, watching. She stepped onto the porch. Ghost stiffened beside her. The door creaked open before she knocked. A man stood in the shadows, mid-50s, deep lines etched into his face, eyes like storm water, dark, tired, but aware. "You're the girl with the dog," he said, not a question. Anna nodded. "You're Marcus Vale." He stared at Ghost for a long time, then stepped aside. "Come in, but be quick. If they're watching, we don't have long." The inside of the cabin smelled of cedar and dust. Maps were tacked to the walls, strings connecting drop sites, lab closures, transport routes. Anna stepped in, her boots quiet on the wood floor. Vale turned. "That dog, I helped train him. Not directly, but I built the profiles." "Profiles?" she asked. "Stress simulations. We use machine learning to predict trauma responses and rewire instinct. But Ghost, he was different. He didn't break the way others did. He endured. He remembered." Anna's voice cracked. "Why didn't you stop it?" "I tried," he said quietly. "That's why I disappeared." He reached into a drawer, pulled out an old hard drive. "This is everything. Names, photos, locations. Proof." Anna reached for it, but he held it back. "Once you take this, there's no walking away. You understand?" She looked at Ghost, then nodded. "I stopped walking away the day he followed me." Vale handed it to her, but as she turned to leave, Ghost suddenly snarled, low, warning. Anna looked out the window. Headlights, 4 vehicles, no plates. Vale's voice dropped. "They found me." He opened a hidden panel in the floor. "Go, take the dog, take the drive. I'll buy you time." "I'm not leaving you," Anna said. "You have to." A hand gripped her arm. Ghost barked, sharp, piercing. Anna hesitated, then ran. She dove into the woods behind the cabin, Ghost at her side. The trees swallowed them. Gunshots cracked behind her. She didn't look back. Didn't have to. Because as they vanished into the dark, she clutched that drive like a lifeline. Inside it was everything they'd buried. And for the first time, the truth had a voice. It howled through the night beside her. And it would not be silenced. If this story has pulled you in, if your heart raced with every shadow and flickered with every glimpse of hope, don't let it vanish into silence. Share what you've seen. Speak for those who can't. Like, comment. Let others follow this path, because the only thing more dangerous than injustice is forgetting. She drove without headlights for the first few miles. The forest swallowed the road, and every tree looked like a threat. Every bend whispered ambush. Ghost sat in the passenger seat, head low, ears twitching at every sound beyond the glass. The hard drive rested in her coat pocket, heavy like it knew it carried names that had once been sealed away under concrete and shame. She didn't speak, couldn't. Her pulse hadn't stopped thundering since the shots rang out. Marcus was gone. She didn't know if he'd been captured or worse. But she did know this. He'd given her the one thing that could end it all. She reached the safe house by dawn, a tiny farmhouse buried under thickets of overgrown pine, owned by a retired nurse who owed Anna a favor from years back. No neighbors, no questions, just space and silence. Inside, she laid out the drive, plugged it into her laptop, and stared. There were folders upon folders, some named like experiments, others like case files, and some just numbers. Ghost sat beside her, unmoving. She clicked one marked Trial 2A conditioning footage. The screen lit up, a sterile white room, cameras in every corner. A dog, Ghost, was chained to the floor, electrodes running down his spine. A man's voice spoke through a speaker, calm, clinical. Subject will now be exposed to trigger sequence alpha. A loud blast of static, then a series of high-pitched tones. Ghost flinched, whined, tried to retreat, but the chains held. The footage ran for 22 minutes, and she watched every second. Her stomach clenched, her hands trembled, but she watched, because she had to know what they did to him, because someone had to carry the memory of that cruelty and do something with it. By the time the video ended, Ghost had moved. He pressed against her side, head resting on her lap. She whispered, "I'm so sorry," and he just closed his eyes. That afternoon, Lena arrived. She hadn't said she was coming, just knocked once and let herself in. Anna didn't look up from the laptop. "They killed Marcus." "I know," Lena said quietly. "I saw the news. Official story is gas explosion. No one's investigating." Anna turned. "They're erasing evidence in real time." Lena nodded. "We have to move fast. I have a contact at a national outlet, someone with teeth. If we can deliver the right package, they'll run it. But we need testimony, documents, and faces." Anna looked at Ghost. "You want me to put him on camera?" Lena hesitated. People respond to survivors. And Ghost, he is the story. If they see what he's been through, really see, it'll change something. "I won't parade him around like a symbol," Anna snapped. "You wouldn't be. You'd be giving him a voice." Silence fell. Then Anna stood. "I'll tell it, all of it, but not just his story." She clicked open another folder. "All of theirs." That night she recorded her testimony. One take, no edits. She sat beside Ghost on the farmhouse floor, the only light from a lantern and the flickering glow of the laptop screen. "My name is Anna Graves. I'm a wildlife rehab specialist, a former veterinary assistant, and someone who never thought she'd be doing this. But I am." She spoke with measured fire, about the dogs, the laboratory, the scars, the beagle, the hard drive, about Marcus Vale and the sound of gunshots echoing through the trees, about Ghost, who had chosen her in a moment of absolute silence when no one else could hear, and about a network of silent suffering that needed to be dragged into the light. She ended it with a single line. "We don't need justice for animals. We need justice with them, because they remember, and they deserve to be remembered too." She hit upload. The file vanished into the cloud, encrypted and protected by fail-safes Lena had spent a year developing. They slept lightly that night. Ghost at the door. Anna with the hard drive clutched to her chest. The next morning, her video had over 900,000 views. By noon, it hit 2.3 million. By nightfall, networks were calling. News anchors were asking questions. Online forums erupted. Former lab techs and field agents started leaking stories anonymously. Hashtags trended. To justice for Ghost. Nah, they remember. Yash, no more silent labs. It was happening. The storm was building. But just when Anna thought they might finally win, the farmhouse phone rang. An unknown number. She answered. A male voice. Filtered. Steady. "You've made a mistake, Miss Graves. You should have stopped walking that dog." The line went dead. Anna stared at the phone, her body cold. Because outside, Ghost had stood up, tail stiff, ears alert. Then came the sound. A vehicle engine. Distant, but coming fast. Anna bolted to the window. A black SUV kicked up dust on the road to the farmhouse. Another followed, two more behind that. Ghost growled, low, deep. It wasn't over. Not yet. They came for Marcus. Now they were coming for her. But this time, she wouldn't run. This time, they'd picked the wrong dog to chase. They hit the side of the house like a thunderclap. Doors slamming, gravel spitting from tires. Shadows moved fast. Too fast. Anna had less than 10 seconds to act. She grabbed the hard drive, shoved it into her coat pocket, and locked eyes with Ghost. "Up," she said, voice barely a whisper. He was already standing. She grabbed the old revolver Marcus had left in the barn, loaded with only 3 bullets. It wasn't meant for a gunfight. Just a message. Footsteps pounded the porch. Then, crack! The front door burst inward, splinters flying like shrapnel. Ghost lunged before she even spoke. The first man went down screaming. Anna fired once, wide and wild, just to slow the next one. She ducked through the hallway, Ghost covering her back, and shoved open the cellar door. The cold slapped her face. She stumbled down the creaking steps. A single bowl buzzed overhead. She threw the latch, locked it, then dropped to the floor, panting. Above her, boots stomped. Furniture overturned. Voices barked out commands. They were searching, and they didn't care about subtlety anymore. For a moment, all Anna could hear was her own breath and the soft wind pushing through the cellar vents. Then, one of the voices above shouted, "She's not here! She has the footage. Check the barn, burn the rest." She clutched Ghost's fur. "I need you quiet," she whispered. Ghost didn't make a sound. They stayed there for what felt like hours. Eventually, the boots retreated. Doors slammed. Engines roared back to life, and the farmhouse began to burn. Flames spread fast. Someone had doused it with accelerant. Smoke bled through the floorboards. Heat shimmered above her head. They had to move. Now Anna ripped open the back hatch in the cellar wall. A tunnel, old bootlegger crawl space, snaked under the shed 50 yards out. She didn't think. She just ran, crawling through dirt and cobwebs, Ghost pressing close behind her like a shadow. They emerged into daylight thick with smoke. She turned and watched the roof collapse, and her life with it. Anna didn't cry. She burned. Later that night, they found refuge in a motel 2 towns over. Cheap, anonymous. The kind of place where no one asked questions if your dog had a scar over his eye and you looked like hell warmed over. Lena met them there. She paced as Anna unpacked what little they'd managed to save. They're not just cleanup crews. These are professionals. Military backgrounds at least. Black site types. This goes way deeper than anyone thought. Anna didn't look up. "They're scared," Lena paused. "What?" "They're not acting like they're in control. They're running, erasing, threatening. That's not power. That's panic." Lena's eyes narrowed. "You're right, and panic makes people sloppy." The next day, the first arrest came. A mid-level employee from Beltec Laboratories was caught trying to flee the country with a fake passport. Whistleblowers came forward. 2, then 6, then 23. Stories poured out. A secret government contract. A behavioral conditioning project that turned discarded strays into hyper-compliant scent trackers. Ghost had been one of the earliest prototypes. They were trying to develop dogs that responded to neurological triggers, sounds, smells, even visual cues, and obeyed without question. They wanted to use them in conflict zones, in detention facilities. Dogs that didn't think, just obeyed. But something went wrong. Ghost didn't break. He bonded. And that made him dangerous, because loyalty, real loyalty, can't be engineered. It can only be earned. The footage Anna released began circulating globally. Not just the dogs suffering, but their resilience, their refusal to give in. News stations showed Ghost's transformation, from broken and skeletal to alert and unyielding, from lab experiment to survivor, and people listened. Donations poured into shelters. Volunteers showed up in cities to search for lost and discarded strays. One by one, former lab dogs, those who had survived, were found, rescued, rehomed. Anna kept a map on the motel wall. Every red pin was a survivor's new home. Ghost would sit beneath it, eyes following her hand as she placed each one. And then something strange happened. The same black SUVs that once hunted them started turning up abandoned. Keys still in the ignition, gear stripped, no signs of struggle, just left. Some speculated defections, others believed insiders had begun dismantling the operation from within. But Anna didn't care about theories. She cared about one thing. Ghost had stopped flinching in his sleep. Then on a cold morning dusted with frost, a package arrived at the motel desk. No return address. Inside was a single object, Marcus's dog tags, wrapped in a red thread. Anna held them in her palm, fingers closing slowly. She could still see the way he smiled before the doors closed. Still hear his voice telling her to run. Ghost nosed the tags gently, then looked up at her with eyes that said more than words ever could. She knew what they meant. Someone was still watching, still helping, still fighting from the shadows. She stood up, heart heavy but steady. "We're not done yet." Ghost tilted his head. She smiled. "But we're getting close." They walked out of the motel room into the weak sun. Behind them, the world was changing. In front of them, it was waiting. If this story moved you, share it. Someone else might need to know they're not alone. Someone else might be holding on for a reason to keep going. Maybe you are too. Don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter, because stories like this are only the beginning. Let's make sure they're not the end. The warehouse was nearly silent, except for the slow creak of the hanging light swinging overhead. Anna stood in the center of the room, arms crossed, facing the man whose signature was on every shipment invoice from the Black Site Kennel. Dr. Edwin Lorre, white coat, thinning hair, the kind of eyes that avoided mirrors. He sat handcuffed to a folding chair, shivering, not from the cold, but from exposure. He had come forward, not willingly, but the threat of prosecution and something deeper, some cracked remnant of guilt, had pushed him into the open. "They were never meant to survive," he whispered, staring at his own hands. "The early prototypes. Ghost. He wasn't even supposed to live through the third phase of testing." Anna didn't flinch. "But he did." Lorre nodded, eyes distant. "He bonded to one of the handlers, a new guy, fresh out of the army, quiet, gentle. Marcus. That name hit like a quiet storm in her chest. He used to sneak ghost scraps, talk to him, not train him, just talk." Lorre's voice trembled. "That dog would watch Marcus like he was the moon." Anna could see it. She could feel it. Ghost lying beside Marcus's boots, looking up at him with those eyes full of question and trust. A bond forming not through force, but through presence, through kindness. "Marcus died trying to break him out, didn't he?" she asked quietly. Lorre nodded. Anna swallowed hard. "So why send me his tags now?" Lorre hesitated, then lifted his gaze, hollow and worn. "Because someone on the inside never stopped protecting you. Marcus wasn't working alone. He was part of something bigger, a back channel, soldiers, technicians, even a few scientists. They've been trying to take it down for years." Anna's breath caught. "You mean there's a network?" "Yes," Lorre said, "and they're still active. But they need proof to bring the last piece down." "What piece?" He hesitated, then said one name. Denton Gray. The name landed like a rock in her chest. CEO of Gray Corp. Philanthropist, veteran, animal rights donor, public saint, private butcher. He wasn't just funding the labs, he owned them. He had buried them under shell companies, non-profits, fake research grants. Built a reputation as a man who saved animals while engineering their destruction from behind mirrored boardroom glass. Ghost, lying beside her boot now, let out a low growl at the mention of Gray's name. He remembered. Anna placed a hand on his head. "What if I told you," Lori said slowly, "that Gray's personal estate still has a vault beneath it, that the final batch, the last 12 experimental dogs, are there, sedated, waiting?" Anna's jaw tightened. "You're saying they're still alive?" Lori nodded. "And you might be the only one who can get to them." 3 nights later, under the cover of rain and moonless dark, Anna stood at the edge of Gray's estate, high on a ridge west of the river. Lena crouched beside her, scanning infrared readouts. Minimal patrols, likely automated sensors on the lower fence, cameras on a grid. Anna had eyes only for the windows. The glass fortress shimmered like a cold jewel in the night, sleek, modern, silent, a perfect lie. "They say he lives alone," Lena murmured. "He doesn't," Anna replied. "He lives with the ghosts he created." She knelt beside Ghost. He was trembling, but not from fear, from memory. "We're going to get them," she whispered to him. "The last 12. We bring them out, and we bring Gray down." He leaned into her hand, eyes steady. They moved, avoided the perimeter beams, scaled the eastern side under cover of wind-slicked trees, slipped through the delivery entrance using a bypass Lore had memorized from blueprints years ago. Inside, the halls were white, polished, echoing with silence. Every footstep felt like thunder. The vault was under the atrium, code protected, biometric lock. Anna didn't hesitate. She reached into her coat and pulled the finger. Lena turned away slightly. They had taken it from Lori after he signed his testimony. The scanner blinked green. The door opened. 12 cages, 12 dogs, all different sizes, breeds. But every eye told the same story. Pain, fear, and a question they hadn't dared ask for years. "Am I safe now?" Ghost stepped forward, slow and quiet, and whined once. The smallest, a tan mutt with a torn ear, moved first, crawled forward, then another, then a third. They recognized him. He was one of them. Anna's heart cracked wide open. "They're coming with us," she said, "all of them." But the moment they stepped out of the vault, the alarm blared. A blinding red siren, a metallic voice barking a lockdown protocol, and from the end of the corridor, Denton Gray stepped out of the shadows. Tall, white beard, immaculate suit, and the calm of a man who had always been 10 steps ahead. "You could have walked away," he said quietly. "You had your story, your pity parade. You and that mutt could have disappeared." Anna didn't blink. "We don't run anymore." He stepped forward. "These dogs are dangerous. You release them, and someone will get hurt." Ghost growled, low and sharp. "They're not the danger," Anna said. "You are." Gray smiled, then drew the gun from his side. He raised it, but didn't see Ghost lunge. Didn't see the others follow. 12 shadows, 12 howls. Not rage, justice. The gun clattered to the floor before the first shot could echo. It was over in seconds. Anna stood frozen, and then, quietly, bent down and picked up the weapon. She looked Gray in the eyes, bruised, stunned, terrified. "This is what it feels like," she said, "to be helpless." The news broke at dawn. Whistleblower footage, documents, lab photos, testimony from Dr. Lori. Denton Gray was arrested. Dozens more followed. The last 12 dogs were taken to a sanctuary built from the donations of over 1 million people who had seen Ghost's story and said, "Enough." Anna didn't speak at the press conferences. She didn't need to. She let Ghost walk beside her, scars and all. They were his words now. He was the voice of every dog who had been used, broken, discarded, and survived. And the world? It listened. If you followed this far, thank you. It's not just a story, it's a reminder. Every soul matters. Every voice counts. Don't let them be forgotten. Like, comment, share. Someone needs this more than you know. The air at the sanctuary smelled of cedar wood and rain-soaked earth. A low mist clung to the grass, curling around the kennel paths like a soft veil. Anna stood by the fence, arms resting on the wood, watching as the 12 rescued dogs explored the open field. For the first time in years, they weren't under lights, no cameras, no commands, just sky. She could feel it in her bones, the way the silence had changed. No longer sharp with dread. It was full now, with breath, with space, with healing. Ghost trotted by her side, slower now. His gait was uneven. The bullet wound from months ago had healed, but the limp remained. She never tried to correct it. He had earned it. Each of the 12 had been renamed by volunteers. Not numbers, not files. Real names. Real beginnings. The tan mutt with the torn ear. She'd seen a young girl name him Pip and cry into his fur. Pip now slept curled at the girl's feet every afternoon. The larger husky mix with a scarred eye. He followed an elderly woman with a walker as if she were royalty. It didn't feel like justice. Not entirely. Justice would have meant it never happened in the first place, but it was something. Anna turned slightly at the sound of boots approaching through gravel. Lena joined her at the fence, coffee steaming in her hand, her face softer than usual, less guarded. "They offered you the medal again," Lena said, barely above a whisper. "I don't want it. You should take it. Make them say your name this time." Anna let out a breath. Marcus didn't need a medal. He needed to be heard before they silenced him. Lena hesitated. "You think they'll ever admit what he did? That he died trying to stop it?" Anna looked out toward the field. One of the dogs, a wiry shepherd with a crooked tail, jumped into a pile of leaves, startled himself, then spun in joyful circles. "I think," she said softly, "this place is his medal." 2 weeks passed. An envelope arrived, no return address, postmarked from Wyoming, inside a photograph. Anna held it like a relic. Marcus, standing in front of a shack in the woods, arms crossed, sunlight hitting half his face. Beside him, a dog, Ghost, younger, clean. His eyes were different in that photo. Less haunted, more ready. There was handwriting on the back. "Every soul I save is for you. If I don't come back, make it matter." No name, but she knew it was him. Anna closed her eyes, pressing the photo to her chest. It still hurt, all of it. But she had a place for that pain now. It lived beside the memory, not inside it. The sanctuary had visitors nearly every day now. Families, schools, survivors, people who saw themselves in the animals, people who needed to see proof that recovery wasn't fiction, that scars didn't have to mean surrender. One boy in particular stuck with her. 9 years old, small for his age, quiet. He didn't run with the others. He sat by the fence, waiting. Anna walked over and crouched beside him. "You waiting for a dog?" The boy nodded, eyes fixed on Ghost, who lay near the oak tree, chin on his paws. "What's his name?" he asked. "He doesn't really have one," Anna said. "He answers to Ghost, but that wasn't the name he was born with." "What was it?" She smiled faintly. "He never told me." The boy was silent a while, then reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a little dog tag on a string. Homemade, rough around the edges. He walked to Ghost. Kneeling slowly, he extended the tag. Ghost lifted his head, sniffed once, then laid it gently between his paws. The boy whispered something only the dog could hear, then sat with him in the grass. Anna didn't interrupt. Sometimes healing didn't need witnesses, just a place. Later that evening, when the sky turned copper and the wind picked up over the trees, Anna walked the perimeter of the sanctuary alone. Her boots made soft crunches against the gravel. She passed a stone bench tucked beneath the largest oak, and there, etched faintly into its side, were the words someone had carved with a knife. "To the ones they threw away, we saw you, we came back." She sat. Ghost joined her a moment later, pressing his weight against her leg, the way he always did when he could feel a storm coming, not outside, but in her chest. She ran a hand over his back. "You think they'll ever forget what happened?" Ghost's eyes blinked once, as if to say, "They don't need to, they just need to remember the ending." And so she sat with him, watched the sunset slip beneath the hills. Let the world be still for once. Let the silence say something beautiful. If this story has touched something in you, If it reminded you of what strength looks like in unlikely places, share it. Let it live beyond this screen. Sometimes it's not the loudest stories that change the world. It's the ones told with scars and soft eyes and second chances. The mornings were colder now. Anna woke to the sound of rain tapping against her window, the kind of rain that could drown out all thoughts if you let it. She wrapped herself in a thick sweater, made her coffee in a quiet kitchen, and stood by the window, watching the mist roll in from the mountains. Ghost, as always, lay by the door, waiting for the world to wake up with him. He had become her shadow, not just a companion, but a part of her, intertwined with the rhythms of her life. They had learned to walk the world together. He, steady in his own way, and she, carrying the weight of everything they had both survived. But the weight of what they had done, it wasn't finished yet. Anna had kept the photo of Marcus hidden beneath her bed. She hadn't shown it to anyone, not even Lena, though she knew the woman could guess. There were no words to explain it, no easy lines to draw between what Marcus had done and where they were now. Some days she thought about what would have happened if she had stayed away, if she had let someone else take care of Gray, let someone else push through the layers of corruption and the lies. But then she remembered the sanctuary, the dogs, the children who visited, whose faces softened as they watched the animals, in the way they held each other's hands just a little tighter when they saw the scars. It was hard to forget that when you had saved lives, you couldn't stop there. Anna stood and grabbed her coat from the hook by the door. Ghost followed her. Outside, the air was thick with fog. The ground felt damp, the grass sticking to her boots as they walked toward the back of the sanctuary. There, just beyond the small hill, stood an old barn. It was tucked away from the main field, out of sight from the visitors. But not from her. They'd built the barn after the rescue, for the dogs who needed a bit more space, a bit more time. Time to heal from the trauma they carried inside, the trauma they couldn't speak. Ghost had taken to this place, not with fear, but with something deeper. He always returned here when the storm in his mind grew too loud. He always knew where to go. Today, though, it was different. As they approached the barn, Anna saw the familiar figure of Lena standing by the entrance. Her arms crossed, staring into the darkness inside. "You've been up here for hours," Anna said softly. Lena didn't turn around at first. She only exhaled slowly, her shoulders stiff. "I've been thinking." "About what?" Lena finally turned to face her. The expression on her face was harder than Anna had seen in weeks. "About the truth we didn't get to," she said. "The rest of it. Gray wasn't the only one behind this?" Anna's pulse quickened. "What are you saying?" Lena nodded toward the barn, her eyes narrowing. "There's more, people in the system, people who thought Gray's empire was going to crumble, but they couldn't let go of the control they had. They're still out there. And someone with too much power, is making sure they stay hidden." Anna's heart thudded. Someone's still out there. The words lingered between them, settling into the cold air. She felt it in her bones. Something dark had slithered away, escaping their reach like smoke through a cracked window. She walked into the barn without another word, the heavy silence hanging in the air around her. The barn smelled like hay and wood, but underneath it, something smelled wrong. Musty, stale, like something that had been hidden too long. Ghost stood in the center of the room, his ears flat, staring at something in the far corner. Anna followed his gaze. In the dim light, she saw it, a small crate tucked in the shadows. The crate was old, rusted, covered in dirt, but the markings on it were unmistakable. She knelt down beside it, her fingers brushing the worn metal. A tag. One word etched into the side. Project 53. Her blood went cold. Lena had followed her, but she stopped at the sight of the crate. "You know what that is?" Anna nodded, her throat tight. "It's where the last of the dogs were kept, the ones we never found." "Who did this?" Anna stood, wiping her hands on her coat, the air thick with the truth that hung between them. Gray didn't start it, he was part of it. But the real architect is someone higher up, someone bigger, someone who wanted to control the very thing Gray had set in motion. Lena's face darkened. "Who?" Anna exhaled slowly. She knew, but she couldn't say it just yet. "We're going to find out," she said, her voice steady. "Whatever it takes." By that evening, they had made their plans. It was going to be dangerous. More than dangerous, it was reckless. But Anna didn't have a choice anymore. The crate had been a message, and the only thing louder than the silence in this barn was the echo of the question still sitting in her chest. Who was pulling the strings? Lena helped organize the documents they had, piecing together the scattered hints of corruption. Names, corporations. Then Anna received a call. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Anna McCoy?" The voice on the other end was smooth, calculated, too familiar. "Who is this?" The voice chuckled. "I think you've been digging up something you shouldn't. You should stop, before it's too late." Anna's heart skipped. She was getting closer. Too close, but she wasn't backing down. "No," she said firmly. "I'm not stopping. I'm not afraid." The voice sighed, almost pitying. "We'll see about that." The line went dead. Anna stood there, holding the phone in her hand, staring into the growing dark. But she wasn't afraid. She had something they didn't: the truth. If this story has resonated with you, if you felt the tension and pain of survival, share it. Let it reach others who need to hear it. In the end, we can only stop the cycle if we stand together. You've seen this journey through to the end. Now share it so it doesn't go unheard. The rain hadn't stopped for days. Anna stood in the doorway of the barn, staring out into the relentless storm. The sky had cracked open in sheets of silver, blurring the line between the earth and the clouds. The storm outside felt like a mirror of the chaos inside her mind. She wasn't alone anymore. Ghost lay at her feet, his body heavy but still watchful, his presence as solid as the earth beneath them. The barn had become their refuge, their last sanctuary before they faced whatever lay on the other side of this darkness. She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, but also something else: hope. It had always been fragile, but it had never been gone. Not completely. Behind her, the barn doors creaked open, the sound swallowed by the rain. Lena stepped in, her eyes sharp, her coat soaked through, but there was something different in her gaze, something determined. "I've got news," she said, her voice carrying the weight of it. Anna turned, her heart racing, unsure whether to hope or prepare for more danger. "The call you got?" Lena asked. "It's bigger than you think. I've traced the number. It's coming from someone with direct ties to the system, someone who doesn't want the truth getting out." Anna's chest tightened. "Who?" Lena pulled out a piece of paper from her jacket. "I was able to pull some old records. A man named Jonathan Gray." Anna's mind flashed back to the cruel face of the man who had orchestrated it all. The man who'd been a shadow behind every corner. The name felt like acid on her tongue. Gray was the architect, the one who had kept the system running, turning a blind eye to the suffering of innocent lives, all in the name of power. But Lena's next words hit harder. "Jonathan Gray isn't who you think he is," Lena continued, a grim look crossing her face. "He's part of something much deeper, something that involves people at the highest levels of power. The corporation behind him, Shadow Industries, is far-reaching. They've covered their tracks for years." Anna's pulse quickened, the anger rising in her chest like a wave she couldn't control. "So he's untouchable?" "For now," Lena said, "but not for long. I've made some calls. There's a former insider willing to talk. We're not alone in this. People want to see him brought down." Anna's fingers clenched into fists. The truth was all she had now. Every part of her wanted to run into the storm, to chase down the answers, to tear through the lies. But there was more at stake than just revenge. It was about the future, about the sanctuary, about the dogs, and about giving every person who had ever been discarded, whether human or animal, a second chance. Anna felt a hand on her shoulder. Lena's grip was steady, firm. "We'll make this right," Lena said. "Together." And that was all it took. Together. Anna walked back to the center of the barn, her mind focused on the path ahead. She turned to Ghost, whose deep brown eyes seemed to understand. His head tilted, a quiet acceptance in his gaze. "We're going to take them down," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "And we're going to do it for all of them." The plan was set. Anna and Lena were going to take their fight to the heart of Shadow Industries. They had one shot at this. They couldn't afford to fail. They couldn't afford to let Gray, or anyone like him, keep destroying lives. But as the rain continued to pour outside, Anna knew there was one thing they couldn't change. The world would never forget what they had survived. But the story didn't end in silence. It ended with truth. In the days that followed, they gathered the evidence they needed, pulling the final pieces together. They had contacts, allies who had been waiting for the right moment to act. As the storm raged outside, they moved quietly through the shadows of the city, gathering what they needed to make their case. Proof that the system had been compromised, that there were still people fighting for justice in the face of corruption. The truth would be unveiled, and the world would know. It wasn't the medal that mattered. It wasn't the recognition. It was the fight. It was the choice to rise above the weight of the past and make sure the future was different. The dogs had been the first to lead them to this. Their broken spirits, their courage had given Anna the strength she needed to face whatever came next. As they stood at the entrance to Shadow Industries, the rain had finally stopped. The air was still, the storm passing, but it wasn't over yet. Not for Anna, not for Ghost. Together they walked toward the building, toward the confrontation that would change everything. And when they stepped inside, it felt like stepping into the truth. It was theirs now. The fight wasn't over, but the first chapter had ended, and it had ended with hope. If you've stayed with us through this journey, you know that the greatest battles are the ones we fight to protect those who can't protect themselves. If this story moved you, share it. Let others hear it. Every voice matters, and together, we can make sure no one is ever forgotten. This marks the end of this story. But in the quiet moments, remember that every story of survival deserves to be told. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you even a little, don't forget to like, share, and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want more powerful emotional stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. There's so much more to come.